Okay, everyone, it is 11 o'clock and welcome to another edition of Live with D25. I'm your host, as always, Adam Harris. I'm the head of communications and storytelling for District 25. Live with D25 is just an awesome opportunity for us as a district to allow the community to have another opportunity to connect with us so that we can push out some information, but also interact with anybody that wants to answer questions live on this Zoom webinar. And my guest today is, again, Dr. Lori Vine, our superintendent. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Adam. Good morning. Thanks for doing this again.
Yeah, of course. So Live with D25 used to be an hour. And then we noticed that after about 25 minutes, we were done and we had the questions all wrapped up in 25. That makes sense with us. So we're going to do this for 25 minutes. And so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to toss a couple questions at Dr. Vine. She's going to update us on the happenings in the district and what to expect. We're going to talk about summer. We're going to talk about next year. We're going to talk about some Ispe guidelines. And then we're going to answer any questions that you may have. Again, my email is aharris@sd25.org. If anybody has any questions for next week's Live with D25 or for any future Live with D25s or just a question in general, just email me and I can get you the answer and we can discuss it live. So Dr. Vine, let's start with the Ispe guidelines that got pushed out this week and what that means for us now in the summer and then in the future.
Yeah, so pretty big news, and it's been in the news, so a lot of people probably heard something about it, but hopefully I'll be able to kind of clarify exactly what it means. So the Illinois State Board of Education approved a resolution that basically supports our state superintendent, Dr. Carmen Ayala, in making a declaration about the 21-22 school year. So she hasn't officially made that declaration, but she says that she will, and the resolution allows her to do that and for her declaration to become implemented. Basically, what that says is that for the 21-22 school year, all schools in Illinois must be fully in person, full-time, 5 days a week, full schedule, starting on whatever the opening day is for each school district in the state of Illinois. And the other part of it that is interesting and needs to probably be explained to people is that the declaration does say that remote learning options, so some style of remote learning, must be made available to students if two things occur. One, if a student is not able to get a vaccine. So there's not a vaccine currently for kids under 12. So a student who's under 12 cannot access a vaccine. Or there may be some unique situations where students with medical issues are not able to get the vaccine. So if a student cannot get a vaccine and also that student has to quarantine, so they have to quarantine because they're a close contact to a positive case, or they have to quarantine because they have symptoms of their own or whatever reason. So if a student cannot access a vaccine and they have to quarantine, then a school district must provide them remote access to learning. So that is the only remote experience that is required by the state. So to give some examples, any students who are 12 years old will not necessarily get remote learning options because there is a vaccine available to them. Even if they choose not to take it, because it's available, they'll be expected to be fully in person. Again, there might be a really unique situation with a student that has a unique medical situation, and we would work with that individually. But as we start the school year, if everything remains the same as it is in the state of Illinois right now, it would be our 3-year-olds through our 11-year-olds who can't access a vaccine. And if one of those students or a group of those students had to quarantine for some reason, then we would offer them a remote opportunity during their quarantine phase. So whether that's 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, however the state defines it at the time. Now, as you know, Adam, we're not having to do a lot of quarantining at our elementary grades lately. Knock on wood, knock on everything
Yeah.
that we can.
Yeah.
Because the number of cases have decreased throughout the state and also right here in District 25. So we are really expecting that the new year will be a typical fully in-person year. I applaud the State Board of Education for making a statement and passing a resolution to support Dr. Ayala in her declaration that next year would be a full in-person year. Again, we will, here in District 25, we will let families know what that remote experience would look like if their students needed to quarantine. The other thing I should probably add is once vaccines become available for our younger friends in the district, then they also would never need to remote in when a vaccine's available to them. We hear it sometimes that might be September, October. We hear other times that might be early 2022. So we're not sure when that is. But for all intents and purposes, we're in school 5 days a week across the state, including in District 25, which we had already decided. And if we have students who need to quarantine, we will provide an opportunity for them to remotely access instruction.
Okay, there's a lot there. So I'm noticing some questions coming up from my end that I don't fully understand, or I don't have a complete picture. So we'll start with students 11 and under. That as of right now, there is no vaccine available.
Right.
So the requirement is that we would, do those students and parents, do they have a choice like this year? I want to be a remote student, I want to be an in-person student, or are you saying everyone's in person, but the thing that we are going to supply is a remote option if there's a quarantine situation?
You're correct, Adam. Everybody is in person. There
Okay.
is no ability to choose. I want a remote academy or I want to live stream in. We're going back to a typical school year. Everybody comes in person.
Yeah.
When if a child needs to quarantine,
Yeah.
right, because the Illinois Department of Public Health or through our school nurses determines that they need to do that, then if they are home and quarantining but feeling healthy enough to participate in school, we'll have a remote option for them. It will very likely look different than it did this year, but we're still finalizing those details and we'll send that out. But for most students, they should never have to access that. They should be in person every day, but that will be in place in case we have children who do have to quarantine.
Okay, that makes sense. Now for the students 12 and over, where right now a vaccine is available. Everyone's in person. If there's a situation where there's a close contact due to a COVID case and there's a quarantine well, is there a quarantine then because there's a vaccine available?
Right.
Or
No, the only time that a 12-year-old, 13-year-old would need to quarantine is if they don't take the vaccine for whatever reason. Well, actually, I'm going to start over. The only reason that we would provide remote instruction is if a student has to quarantine and they cannot take the vaccine. They have a medical reason.
Yeah.
They're not able to take the vaccine.
No, I hear it.
For most of our 12 and 13-year-olds, taking the vaccine is a family's choice. We are not mandating it in District 25. But if a student does not take the vaccine and then has to quarantine, they're going to be homesick like they would with a typical illness. We're not going to provide a remote option for them.
That makes sense.
Again, two things have to happen. You have to be told you have to quarantine, and a vaccine is not available to you. It's not accessible to you. So for the most part, we will not see a 12 or 13-year-old that would remote in at all in this new school year, except for maybe a really unique medical situation.
Gotcha. Unique medical situation. Okay. Another question just popped up for me. And you may not have the answer to this. What about what about beliefs in not wanting to get the vaccine, or what about religious restrictions to getting the vaccine or anything like that? Is that not part of the mandate from ISBE? Is it just medical?
No, at this point, again, nobody is mandated to get the vaccine, right? So it's not like other vaccines where you might have a religious exemption or things like that.
Okay.
So if you choose to not get the vaccine due to a religious belief or other reason, whatever reason, if you have to quarantine, then you will quarantine and pick up your work and do it individually. You will not remote in.
Okay. That makes total sense. And we're not keeping track of these vaccines, right?
No, we're not tracking who's getting the COVID vaccine and who is not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot. Did any of that stuff that ISBE released, is any of that changing how we're finishing this school year as of right now?
Yeah, good question. No, for the rest of this school year, at this point, we're following all mitigation strategies that we've been following. We still have our remote students that are able to live stream in, and we're doing all of our typical mitigation. We're wearing masks in schools. The CDC, the Illinois Department of Public Health, our local health department, all continue to say that we should have masks in schools for the rest of this school year. So unless they change something, we will continue this year as we have been doing.
Okay, cool. And then talking about mitigation strategies, let's do an awesome little segue to what we wanted to talk about with summer. Are those mitigation strategies that we know and have grown to love, are they going into the summer for Summer U?
At this moment, I would say yes, that everything that is in place for schools will carry through until the state tells us that we no longer are asked to do those in schools. So having said that, if the state of Illinois moves to phase 5, like the governor has been saying he believes we will do on June 11th, that could impact what mitigation strategies we're required to do in schools, if any, right? Phase 5 in the state of Illinois typically is supposed to mean everything's back to normal. But we know through experience that it could, phase 5 could occur with an additional declaration of things that are different for schools. Just like right now in the state of Illinois, people who are vaccinated do not have to wear masks in a variety of locations. That is not true in schools. There is separate school guidance that says people in schools, whether you're vaccinated or not, need to continue wearing masks. So if we go to phase 5 in the state of Illinois and there's no extra attachment about schools, then we'll notify everybody that we'll be following phase 5. But again, I think it's very possible the governor could move the state to phase 5, but still have some school specific pieces that we'll need to follow. So at this moment, on May 21st at 11:13 a.m., we will implement the mitigation strategies we're implementing now in our Summer U.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And also something just came up for me too. Like I chose to get the vaccine, and I'm noticing myself just kind of like easing out of the mask, like I wore it into the grocery store. I'm wearing it. I mean, I'm definitely wearing it on public transportation because that's still in the recommendation. But yeah, like, I don't know if your student, I imagine, wants to wear a mask and that's not something that we're requiring, they can still wear a mask.
Yeah, very, very likely. That is very likely. So it's going to be a transition for all of us and especially for our students.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We had to talk about something else. Well, we did touch a lot on next year. Did you have some, what was the other thing?
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to just highlight a little bit is as we get to the end of this year, We're excited about the more traditional activities that we'll be doing with our students in all of our schools. And honestly, some of those traditional activities are still going to look a little different than they have in other years, but we're very thankful to our PTA, the ABC 25 Foundation for their support, and all of our staff that are working together to really create some fun end of the year activities to help our students celebrate what they've succeeded through this year together. And a part of that, of course, is our 8th grade graduation ceremonies. We're excited to be having in-person graduation ceremonies for Thomas 8th graders and South 8th graders this year.
Yeah.
We'll be doing those at the high schools. So huge appreciation to District 214 that actually took the initiative to reach out to all of the elementary districts and say, hey, we'd like to offer you a space to be able to have an 8th grade graduation. And 214 has altered their extracurricular activities so that we can have access. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, wow, that's really, that's such an awesome partnership. I mean, it always has been, but that just shows another aspect of how great it is.
Yeah, that's District 214, right? Really caring about the whole community.
Yeah.
And reaching out to be part of the solution during a year with a lot of struggles. So South 8th graders will graduate on Tuesday, June 1st, over at Rolling Meadows on their football field. And that our Thomas 8th graders will graduate on Wednesday, June 2nd, over on the football field at Buffalo Grove High School. So congratulations to those 8th graders. You will never know another age that has had an 8th grade year like you have had. And so I'm just really proud of them. I'm proud of their families. I'm proud of our teachers and just everybody working together. And I'm thinking a lot, especially of our 8th graders this year. Both of our middle schools have some really great end of the year activities. Interestingly, I think both middle schools have taken something that we learned from COVID to integrate into 8th grade activities. And that is, last year we couldn't have graduations, but we had a parade. We had an 8th grade parade,
Right.
and it was super fantastic.
Yeah.
With the 8th graders coming with their families in their cars, dressed in their gowns, and teachers holding up signs and celebrating them. And so both of those middle school communities decided they wanted to keep that parade. So this year, in addition to some fun kind of field days and picnic experiences, they are bringing back the 8th grade graduation parade. And then again, going back to our more traditional ceremony as well. So it's a real nice example of kind of mixing our traditions and some new experiences we had during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's such a blend. And when you were talking about the 8th graders being on your mind, and this being they had an 8th grade year unlike any 8th grader before them and any 8th grader maybe after them. I was talking to a student for our COVID reflection video series at Patton, and he loves history, and he was like, I've always studied history, and I've always been like, I want to be a part of a historic event. And he goes, and I know this was really hard for a lot of people, but I got to be a part of my historic event. And I just thought that was just interesting perspective. I mean, just like our students always give us just an interesting perspective that we can walk away with. And that's what that made me think of.
Yeah, you're right. We don't want anyone else to ever have to go through this again. But all of our students, and especially our 8th graders, they will come out with some experiences that will make them stronger.
Yeah.
That will make them remember to connect to people more. That will make them remember to treasure the things that we often take for granted. And I'm excited. I'm excited for them to have some fun activities, and I'm excited to see how they'll grow and how they'll lead us in the future.
I totally agree. Is there anything else you want to say? Oh, we have also we honored our retirees last night too, and that was really cool at the board meeting. I feel like that's always a really fun, connected moment that we get to have each year.
Yeah, that is a great event each year. Smaller this year because of size, but I think we had 23 retirees that we celebrated. And each of them really having an impact on kids, many, many years of kids and their families, but also on colleagues, and also on training future teachers. A lot of conversations last night about how they've mentored other people or had student teachers and helped them learn. And so our retirees are a group of people that have truly positively impacted kids, but also positively impacted education for the future.
Yeah.
And we so appreciate that. And lots of real personal connections last night, lots of individual stories. Really a great event. We can't thank them enough, but I hope they could feel last night how much everybody appreciated them.
And I just want to let everyone know out there that's watching this on a recording or whatever, like if you want to watch last night's retiree event or anything, catch up on anything with the board, the meeting the video recording is usually posted by noon the next day. It's at sd25.org/catch-up-on-meetings, and it's under the school board tab on our website. So that's up there and posted as well. So yeah, it was cool that it was recorded. You know, like normally I'm trying to like run around and capture it, and it's just like this is just what it was. It was just nice to show it off that way.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Okay, well, we don't have any questions coming up, and I'm all out of them. So I think I can just sit here for a couple more minutes until we hit the 25 mark, and I just want to say thank you again for jumping on. This one was like totally informative, right? Like it's good that we're doing this every week. Some are just kind of like, here's a little update. This one, there's a lot here. So I'll push this recording out via social media a bunch to make sure that people can hear it and understand it.
Great. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks, Adam.
Bye, Dr. Bine. Okay, everyone. So we have a couple more minutes. What should I do? What should I do? You know what? We'll leave you with my guy here. Let's see. Hang on a second. We'll leave you with little COVID reflections. How about that? Hey everyone, tonight's Adam Harris here, your head of communications and storytelling. I'm with Will. We're at Patton Elementary School. Will, thanks for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So we have been walking around and going from school to school and asking students what they've learned from COVID. And Will is a big history buff, so I imagine his answer is going to be somewhat about history. But let's just ask him. Will, what have you learned from experiencing this pandemic?
Well, I've always wanted to be in a part of history, and now I'm experiencing it myself. But if you're taking it from I know everyone can probably relate to this if you're living with family right now. Sometimes you can get annoyed of them because you're all cramped in space. But my family, we've been playing board games, we've been having movie nights. It's just been a lot of fun, and I think it's just last summer, we went on a whole bunch of bike rides to just get out of the house. And I think that's just a great experience because it's something we haven't really done together as a family, and now we get to do it because of COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is family time and how maybe you've reinvested in it. What have you felt spending more time with your family. How do you think this is going to impact you long term?
Oh, well, I just think it will, like, I'll spend more time with my family because, like I play soccer. I'm wearing a soccer shirt right now. Play soccer, baseball. I played a little bit of basketball, but like I play the piano too, so I don't really have time to spend with my family. But like now that we're all cramped in one space, I just feel like I'm gonna like learn how to like spend more time with my family now.
Yeah, I love that because you're busy, man. We're all busy. And I think as we come out of this pandemic, we're going to get right back to being busy, right?
Mhm.
But maybe we can go, oh, remember when we used to go on bike rides during COVID? Like, let's do that again.
Exactly, yeah.
So what is your message to the community, right? If you could tell everybody in Arlington Heights one thing that they should take away from this pandemic, what should they take away?
I would take away just like spending time with everybody and like just savoring that time that you have with someone. Like if you are just like if you're with one person but you're doing something else, I think it's just like to savor time with the people that you're spending time with.
Wow, man. That like filled my heart with joy. Thank you for saying that, because that reminds me too, to savor the time that we have with the people that we love. I love that. Okay, I think that you crushed this, man. Thank you so much for your time and your perspective. Okay, now we just say goodbye, right? Bye. Now we just say goodbye. Okay, thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, everybody.